pleased to be joined this morning with a festive tree behind him by Nick Humphrey, partner at White, a man who spends quite a lot of time in the air between here and Australia. Nick, good morning. Nice to talk to you.
You too, Brandy. Good to see you.
Although presumably not good morning for you. As in, is it...
Oh, it's a bright, sparkly afternoon, Christmas Eve. Sydney's a little bit fresh today, but I have already had a morning swim down at Bondi, so what can I complain about?
Oh, absolutely nothing. Speaking of fresh, we've had 100 flights cancelled over the weekend at Heathrow. Strong winds causing some flight disruption. Any knock-on effect from that heading into Christmas? What's it meant for Heathrow getting ready for a busy couple of days and the receiving airports as well?
Well, it appears that Heathrow seemed to get itself back on track yesterday with just a handful of cancellations and some delay. There's always that systematic effect that's going to roll on across the networks. So, I think we're going to see, it's the old story. Get to the airport early, expect the unexpected, and maybe carry a little bit of extra underwear in your hand luggage, because these sort of flow-on effects affect other things like baggage handling. So there's all those little things that you need to account for. At the moment, the system appears okay. Globally around the world, there's been some threats of strikes in different parts of the world. United Airlines, cabin crew have been threatening strikes. Maintenance engineers out here have been threatening strikes. All these little things have effects. Now, one thing I'm not that I'm, part of the Bureau of Meteorology or anything, but I was looking at the UAE's forecast, 7-day forecast, and there might be some disruptions on the 31st of December with some fog forecast, and we know what that will do to travel plans, and particularly those coming in for New Year's Eve. So that might have an impact. There's nothing that appears at the moment, but people should watch out for that forward-looking weather app issue.
You mentioned flying on New Year's Eve. Flying on the big days seems to be increasing. Having a look out of the UK, and they've seen a massive spike in the amount of people actually flying on Christmas Day. It's up nearly 50% on a decade ago. It's up around 20% on pre-pandemic numbers. Are we seeing a change in when people are willing to book, and why might that be?
Well, there's capacity constraints at the moment. I think people are looking for deals because historically Christmas Day, fly at New Year's Eve and miss, New Year's party, you might get a cheaper flight. I guess depending on your family situation, it might give you an excuse to get out of the Christmas dinner earlier. There's a whole range of reasons, but I think it's a price point issue. And if we look at I think you had Nick Moore from Emirates on last week, and when Emirates is operating at about 95 to 98% load factor, there ain't a lot of seats out there. So people are savvy. And I guess that's what they're looking for. If you're going to go on holidays, hotels are a bit more expensive. You're looking for a cheaper flight somewhere.
Well, let's have a look at what it does look like coming into 2025. More than 5 billion of us expected to fly next year. That's nearly 7% more than in 2024. Are the airports around the world ready for that?
Not quite. I guess there's a few things there. We've still got the flow-on effect of the aircraft delivery delays. There has been enhancements around the world, and you see the introduction of more seamless customs and passenger and security flow, which will help deal with that volume. You're going to have, unfortunately, with that heightened demand, with new aircraft not able to come into the system earlier, pressure on maintenance organisations. There will be technical issues. There's going to be doubtless some, constraints. And it's not just the airports themselves, it's the transport infrastructure around airports. And some parts of the world which are heavily investing in new airport upgrades, and others are way behind the 8 ball. So it's going to have a different ad hoc effect around the world. I think as travellers, again, it's just, give yourself extra time. Expect, particularly, we see if you're still flying the A380, you're not likely to get a seat in that little check-in area. Be willing to stand. There's all those things. Airports still are, but I guess the thing is, if you're gonna develop an airport to deal with your peak demand, much of the year it's going to be parts are going to be sitting idle. So the system really isn't designed to deal with these peaks. So this is where they put more people on, they have more ground handling systems, they have more buses on, more off-stand flights. So this is, I guess, the systematic response to these challenges.
What about the airlines? I mean, you mentioned delays there, and we have seen capacity cut on some routes already due to delay not just in aircraft but in engines as well. What is that going to mean for the ability to get the seat you want on the flight you want?
Well, I guess look, you jump between, if you go look at the manufacturers. I think I've been on the program a couple of times this year talking about Boeing delays, Emirates sending out their own engineers to oversee the Boeing manufacturing of the 777X. Whenever that's going to be released, we don't know. And finally, in November, the Boeing strike was ended with some pretty, incredible wage increases. Now, that delay, they weren't producing aircraft, in particular aircraft, out of that plant for the 737s for a long time. And this is having flow-on effects probably over the next 12 months. So Boeing has those constraints. There's some good news stories. On the Airbus side, you've got the A350 is really rolling out. Emirates, as of mid-January, is launching its first A350 flight to Edinburgh, which is a good news story. Airbus's A321 XLR, that's really going to be ramping up the output of production, and there's going to be some carriers in the region that will be flying that narrow body long haul aircraft. For example, we'll probably see the Indian airline flying that into Dubai. You've got Wizz Air also operating that. So there are some things, but then with this delay, you're still seeing the growth of the ACMI, the wet lease operators who go and fill that demand where the airlines might have been expecting new aircraft. That business model is thriving, and it's dealing with both seasonal demand and airlines that are just unable to, fill the demand with their own aircraft and own metal. The other, I guess, if you look at aircraft deliveries, delays, when will we see the next regional, mega operator go into, commercial operations? That's Riyadh Air. They're expecting, a 787 to be used in their initial operations. They've got a various range of aircraft. They announced their launch 2 years ago, and there's a lot of back office management there waiting for this airline to launch. And then I guess we'll probably see a lot of response from their competitors in the region, and hopefully from a price point that's a good thing for consumers globally, and particularly flying out of Dubai and the Middle East generally.
We have to leave it there, unfortunately. We leave you to Christmas Eve preparations. Nick Humphrey, aviation expert from Norton White. Thank you for your time.